Dak Prescott is going to have a monster 2025 season, and we are buying him in Dynasty leagues. We'll tell you why next.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Michael Fabiano. You can follow him on Twitter at Michael_Fabiano. You can also check out all of his great work over on SI. And on today's show, we're taking a look at the NFC East as we go through the NFC conference, talking about some of our favorite buys, sells, and some sleepers to keep an eye on. And Fabs, let's start with a couple of players that we are targeting in Dynasty leagues. And it just so happens to be the quarterback of our favorite team.
Marcus, I remember signing a player for the highest paid at the position in the league, and he got knocked out 2/3 of the year.
Is that Jerry Jones?
God, I hate Jerry Jones so much. Stupid. But anyways, let's get off the reality and talk about fantasy here. And Dak Prescott right now is ADP's in the 130s. He's the QB 16. He has moved up a little bit. He's moved up a couple of spots over the last month or so. Dak is no longer going to give you, the big rushing totals. Remember, he scored 6 rushing touchdowns in each of his first 3 years. Last year, he was on pace for next to nothing as a runner. But I think we have to remember that when Dak has 2 very high ends, and I guess I'll put George Pickens in that in that category, athletic, talented wide receivers, he does pretty well. And he's got obviously CeeDee Lamb and Pickens at his disposal. And you look back to like 2023, he didn't need to be a big time runner to produce as a fantasy quarterback. He was 3rd in points at the position, and he had just 36 points as a runner. That was 11% of his total numbers. And earlier in his career, about 20% of his fantasy points came as a runner. The Cowboys promoted Brian Schottenheimer to head coach, which I hate, and I will always hate, and I will never love it. But it's a good thing for Dak because part of the reason why Jerry kept Schottenheimer around, other than to have another puppet, a.k.a. Dave Campo, is that he's got a good relationship with Dak.
Sure.
You couple that with a team that has question marks on defense and might have more with the whole Micah Parsons thing. I'm not sure. The team has a very tough strength of schedule, which could increase the pass attempts for Dak. Their backfield is garbage. I'm sorry, Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders. I don't know if the rumors about Jaden Blue being lazy are true. I don't really, pay too much attention to everything on social media and take it as gospel. But the backfield's not going to be good. So when you couple the fact that Dak's going to continue to play in the same offense under Schottenheimer, he's got a new weapon in George Pickens who has a chance to be very good. Overall, the passing game weapons are much better than the weapons in the backfield. You also factor in the Cowboys could be playing from behind because the competition will be fierce and the defense may not be. All of a sudden, Dak Prescott might be a pretty good option in Dynasty and certainly in seasonal leagues. He's entering his age 32 season, so he's still got 3 or 4 more good years in him potentially. And so I'm in on Dak. I'm in on Dak. Now, is he going to be my franchise quarterback in Dynasty? I mean,
no.
Probably not, but is it going to be somebody that I can utilize while, say, I'm waiting to get confident in a JJ McCarthy or I'm getting confident in a Drake May, a younger guy? Dak could be that insurance policy and certainly a player that you can start based on the matchups. And I would not be surprised if he finished in the top 12 in points among quarterbacks, assuming he doesn't get hurt, right, Jera?
So that's basically, and whenever Dak has played a full season, I mean, he's putting up top 6, top 7 quarterback numbers. You don't have to pay that price. And because of the injuries are baked into that as well.
Yeah.
But long term, one of the reasons why I really like Dak, not just for this season, but beyond, is that he's actually one of the more safe quarterback options in terms of like, he's going to be on the field starting. And this is why I talk about with Patrick Mahomes, there's only so many quarterbacks out there that are locked into being starters for the next 7 or 8 years. That's Mahomes. Whereas like for Dak Prescott, we are now going into year 1 of his new contract, which was a 4-year deal where the first 3 years are fully guaranteed. He's going to be the Dallas Cowboys starting quarterback for at least the next 3 years, probably the next 4. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's beyond that. And there's just very few quarterbacks in that range, quarterback 14 to 20 that, I mean, there's guys like Cam Ward and JJ McCarthy where we're really excited about them, but we've seen first round picks wash out all the time. Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield are two guys that have been in that range before, have bounced around the league, right? The other thing that we should mention is CeeDee Lamb. He's now in year 1 of his new contract, so he's going to be there for the foreseeable future. And this is a team that projects to have a good offensive line. They spent a first-round pick on Tyler Booker this year, guard at pick number 12. Tyler Smith, the other guard, one of the best left guards in all of the NFL. They spent a first-round pick on Tyler Guyton. I know a lot of offensive line experts predict that this is going to be one of the best offensive lines in the league. So if you've got a dominant number 1 receiver, a good offensive line, potentially a bad defense, and a quarterback that can handle a big passing workload, you should be in.
Everything you said is part and parcel the reason why I like Dak in fantasy this season. Are the Cowboys going to win? I mean, probably not. I wouldn't be surprised if they were a sub 500 team this year, but
we don't care about that for fantasy, right? Like sometimes we're not being, right. We're not being biased about our favorite team. Like we've got very realistic expectations that this team is going to be hovering.
But sometimes that's not a bad thing.
Yes.
Like, just because you're in a bad team doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be a bad fantasy player. In fact,
Joe Burrow,
especially if the defense struggles, maybe the opposite is going to be true.
Yeah, I think Joe Burrow is the perfect example of this last year, right? Where he has no choice but to sling the ball all over the yard. So I agree with you. I'm buying Dak, not as my QB1, but if you're in a super flex league, like he's the ideal target to go out and get, because I think he gives you such a high floor because the passing volume is going to be there.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. Okay. All right, let's talk about some Eagle players that we are selling in our dynasty leagues. And I know Eagles coming off a Super Bowl win, you would think that the hype would be all there on Eagle players, but maybe that's why we're pushing back a little bit. Here are a few Eagle players that we are selling in our dynasty leagues. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Resurgence. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them, but if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Resurgence Ready. Resurgence Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Resurgence's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in 15 minutes, and effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. If traditional options haven't worked, Resurgence might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. So head over to Resurgence.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL to get 15% off today. That is RUGIET.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code LockedOnNFL for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit Resurgence's website for full safety information. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen every single day. We're talking about some of our favorite buys, sells, and sleepers from the NFC East. And let's talk about those Eagles, Fab. So first of all, I'm going to give you the floor. Who are you selling from this team?
Well, first off, Resurgence might get me aroused. Saquon Barkley does not. Okay. I'm worried about regression, man. And I've said this the entire offseason. He's the RB4 right now. Why? Why is he so high? Because he had, a really good year in 2024, which might make his 2025 season suspect. I just don't get it. His ADP right now is 14. It's too high. And I have said this before, and I'll say it again. Historically speaking, the regression monster is almost certainly coming for Saquon Barkley. He had 370 touches last year. We all know about what that could mean for a running back in the following year. He had 436 carries between the regular and postseason. We all know what that has meant in the past for running backs, and it's not good, okay? Running backs who have rushed for 2,000 yards in a single season. The only running back who didn't see at least a 100-point decline was Eric Dickerson the following year, and he had 99.4 points of a difference compared to his 2,000-yard season. And even Derrick Henry dropped 139 points. Adrian Peterson dropped 115 points. Chris Johnson dropped 120 points. Jamal Lewis dropped 161 points. I mean, Terrell Davis got hurt, so we don't want to throw him in there. Even Barry Sanders, the great Barry Sanders, 114 points. Okay? And then let's not also forget that he's on the cover of the Madden game, which, again, if you're superstitious, okay, you get it. If not, you can be like, Fabs, you're an idiot. All right, that's fine. I don't care. The bottom line here is that he had a magical season. And also, keep in mind, he's missed 26 games in his career due to injuries. And most of that, of course, was with the New York Football Giants. But we have to remember that a lot of times in fantasy, you got to think outside of the box. And it's so easy to just go, well, Saquon Barkley was awesome last year. He was the second best running back in fantasy points, and he's going to do it again. Historical trends say no, he's not going to. In fact, he might see a massive decline in his touches, in his yardage, in his touchdowns, in his fantasy points. It's happened to some of the best running backs in the history of the National Football League. Running backs who are better than Saquon Barkley. Okay, like Barry Sanders, let's just say that. And I love Saquon. I think he's a great player. I just worry about regression. And so when you look at a player who's 28, who will be 29 next year, who might have one or two more good years in the NFL, and that also ignores all of the regression trends that I've talked about, what if he comes out and he's just not the same guy, or he gets hurt, and all of a sudden we're like, damn, do I start Will Shipley? Like, what's going on? That might happen in 2025. It might happen. So RB4 is way too high in a dynasty league, way too high. So, and honestly, if I have Saquon Barkley on my fantasy team, I am taking offers, brother. I am taking offers to see what I can get, because maybe there's somebody out there who loves Saquon Barkley and will give me a king's ransom in return. Maybe there's a crazed Eagles fan out there. There's not that many of those crazed Eagle fans out there, are there? Like, all of them are. That were like, I want Saquon Barkley. I'll give you whatever you want. I mean, like, go out and make moves. Try and put Barkley on the trade block and see what you can get for him. Because I'm promising you right now, guys, he's never going to have another season like he did last year. And with age 30 looming in a couple of years, he might fall off a cliff very soon. So just keep that in mind. And this is not me hating on the Eagles or Saquon. I like Saquon. I'm just telling you what historical trends have shown us. And what do they say about those who have not learned from history? You know the rest.
Yeah. So we are both in agreement. We love Saquon. Like, he's an awesome player. We just think the price is a little too high right now. And that's why we're telling you to go out and sell him. Now, the good thing is he's going to be, of all the players that we're going to mention on this show, he's going to be the easiest to trade away because he's fun to have in fantasy leagues and dynasty leagues, right? Some manager in your league is going to want to get Saquon Barkley. So I get it. Here's the exercise that I always like to do when I'm thinking about selling players. Could their value ever go up? And I think the case of Saquon, let's say Saquon has another big year. Is he suddenly going to go from RB4 to RB2? Probably not, right? Just because of the age. It's like one of these things. Once you get to be 28, 29 years old, you're just kind of capped in what you can be ranked as in Dynasty. And he's just not going to pass a Bijan Robinson or Jahmyr Gibbs or Ashton Genty. And in fact, I think there's a chance, Fabs, that he could have the same year that he had last year, and Omarion Hampton could have 1,400 total yards and 10 touchdowns. And we're ranking Hampton at the same time next year ahead of Saquon Barkley, because that's how much age matters when it comes to Dynasty League. So I am with you. Like, I do think there's going to be a regression coming. Maybe it's only a little bit. Maybe it's 10%, right? Maybe it's 5%. I just don't think you're going to see him repeat the numbers that he had last year. And you're right. You can get a king's ransom. I'm going to run through some trades for you that have happened over on Dynasty League Football in the last 2 weeks, just to show you what kind of deals are out there. So our first one, Saquon Barkley and pick 103 Saquon Barkley 4, pick 103 and a 2026 first round pick.
Gimme. I'm in.
Okay.
Don't even think twice about it.
There you go. Saquon Barkley and Zach Charbonnet for Bijan Robinson and Dontavian Wicks.
In.
Yeah. You're basically just trading RB4 for RB1, RB2. Do that in a heartbeat. If you're looking to trade them for receivers, you could do Saquon Barkley for Amon-Ra St. Brown straight up.
Love it. Yep, I'm in.
Saquon Barkley for Brian Thomas straight up.
In.
Saquon Barkley for Marvin Harrison Jr. and pick 104 in this year's rookie draft.
Hell yes, in.
So that's the thing, is I think there's just going to be a lot of trades out there. And honestly, maybe now's not the right time to trade him. Maybe the right time to trade him is once we get into the season and, our other RB injuries start to happen. But if you can pull off one of those trades, I think I would do it. Especially my favorite of those is like Bijan. Like you can just get Bijan Robinson, who is 6 years younger, 7 years younger. Sign me up.
No doubt about that. And the other two pieces, Dontavian Wicks and Zach Charbonnet, who knows? Maybe Charbonnet will be something, but that's a massive, massive win. And, I would really, I know you said maybe wait and see what happens and trade him during the season. But my concern, Marcus, is that the regression monster comes or the injury monster comes, and then all of a sudden you're out of luck.
It's possible. Yeah.
You're out of luck. And then all that value that he built up last year goes down the pooper, right? So, that's what concerns me. And that's why I want to trade him now. I'd rather trade him now. Look at Bijan. Look at him jump. Look at Saquon. Look at him jump backwards over a player. He's awesome. His Madden rating is great. I don't know anything about Madden. By the way,
I think he's 99 overall.
Really good.
Yeah.
I haven't played a video game in so long, I can't even tell you. It may have been Legend of Zelda, to be quite honest with you, and not the new one. The old one back in the Nintendo. I'd rather trade him now. I'd rather, if I can get some of those deals now, Marcus, yes, absolutely doing it.
Just to clean up one thing real quick. There's a 5-year age difference between Bijan Robinson and Saquon Barkley. Bijan 23, Saquon 28.
Still notable.
Yeah, I still don't understand why Omarion Hampton is being drafted behind Barkley. It just doesn't make sense to me. I can get a guy that's 6 years younger than an offense that we think is going to run the ball, but never mind. Let's talk about.
I'm right there with you, bro. I am right there with you.
So let's talk about another player that we're selling from the Eagles. And again, this is not because of a talent thing, because I think this player is awesome. Devonta Smith is wide receiver 19 right now. And I think if A.J. Brown weren't in the picture in Philadelphia, we would be talking about Devonta Smith as pretty easily a top 12 dynasty receiver. He's just an awesome, awesome player. But he's in an offense that has A.J. Brown, that has Dallas Goedert, that has Saquon Barkley, and that they get all these short rushing touchdowns because of Jalen Hurts. So the ceiling is just capped a little bit. And if you look at Devonta Smith over the last 3 years, I know he's missed some games, but he's averaging about 63, 64 receiving yards per game, which is fine. It's fine, but it's not really, you're not getting those spike weeks that really, really help. I just think he's a little bit overpriced right now, and I would rather take some shots on guys like Xavier Worthy, who's wide receiver 20, or Roma Dunze, wide receiver 21, who might have more upside.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Devonta Smith is a fine player, very good player. Yeah, obviously his ceiling is going to be capped, as you mentioned, with A.J. Brown there and Saquon Barkley. I guess the outlier scenario that could help him this year is if Barkley goes down and they end up throwing the ball a little bit more, because you never know what's going to happen in the National Football League. But yeah, that is a little too high for me.
Well, and now you're projecting injuries. Yeah, you have to project injuries, where you just don't have to do that with some of these other guys. Like Xavier Worthy, no matter what happens, it's going to get a lot of targets. And again, I just want to stress, I think Devonta Smith is an awesome player. It's just a tough situation from a fantasy perspective for him.
Yep. Agreed. If he wasn't as high, if he wasn't as costly, then I may be singing a different song, but that's a little bit too high. And I think there's players, including some of the ones that you mentioned, Marcus, who I'd rather have that are going behind Devonta Smith in startups.
And I just have a hard time, in these startup drafts, if you're using an early 3rd round pick on Devonta Smith. I think that's where ideally, if I'm doing these drafts, I want to go receiver early, and maybe that's the range I try to grab a running back where, maybe you try to get a Jonathan Taylor or a Kyron Williams in that range. It just feels too rich for me. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about some sleepers that we are going to keep an eye on in the NFC East this year. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Workplace stress is at an all-time high. 61% of the global workforce is reporting higher than normal stress levels. And this summer is the perfect time to take small steps to focus on your wellness and manage the challenges that come with your workday. Of course, most of us just can't quit our jobs or take endless vacations, but we can start small, whether it's going outside for a couple more minutes, maybe adding an extra 20-minute walk to your day, or talking to someone who can help you navigate life's challenges. That is where BetterHelp comes in. Therapy can help you set healthier boundaries at work so stress doesn't spill over into the rest of your life. And as the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Unwind from work with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That is BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it just a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are out getting sunburned at the beach. I love FanDuel for so many different reasons, but it's easy to use, and it makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. And if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. New customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Wanted to let you know that the Locked On NFL Top 100 is here, voted on by the NFL host of the Locked On Podcast Network. Our Top 100 was formed by experts that cover these teams and players every single day. Find the full list on Locked On Sports today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, let's talk about some sleepers from the NFC East that we are trying to stash on our Dynasty rosters. Who do you got?
A guy whose last name I enjoy saying, and I may not say it correctly, but Cam Skattebo.
Yeah, there you go.
I love it. I will say this, Marcus. He's a sleeper, but when you look at the ADP, he's RB25.
It's wild.
So, like, I almost wanted to, like, text you and be like, I don't know if I can even use him.
You can.
Because that's high. I think he's getting drafted too high. But I do think he is a sleeper. If you don't know anything about Skattebo, all right, he started his collegiate career at Sacramento State, and then he ended up going to Arizona State, broke out last year, was fifth in the Heisman voting, and he's a good all-around back. He rushed for 1,700 plus yards. He had 21 touchdowns on the ground. He had 46 catches for another 605 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns as a receiver. So he can kind of do it all. And he's an old school type of guy. Like, he's the type of player that I would see, like, remember that movie Leatherheads?
Yes.
With like George Clooney, and they had like the leather, like I could see that guy. I could see Skattebo out there with a leather helmet. Like, he's a fun player to watch. He was a 4th round pick. Obviously the Giants, they have Tyrone Tracy there. So I don't think that Skattebo is going to come in and be like, I'm going to take over the starting job and I'm going to get all of the workload. I mean, I don't know that that's going to be the case, but he's talented enough to, in the long term, be the Giants running back potentially of the future. Like, he's a bruising type of running back. He's really like a linebacker in a running back's body. He rushed for 4.1 yards after contact per attempt last year. He forced 102 missed tackles. He was tied for 3rd on PFF's missed tackles forced after a rush category. He was in the top 10 among runners in elusive rating. He's just a very good player. And the Giants, what do they lack for? Playmakers. Outside of Malik Neighbors, okay, I mean, Wan'Dale Robinson, okay, whatever. Nothing great. So if he can kind of come out there and be a playmaker for the G-men and give them a little spark on the ground game. Now, he didn't really block a lot in college, so that might be an issue for Cam. But I do expect this to be a committee. And I would not be surprised if at some point Cam Skattebo takes over the starting job for the Giants. And maybe it's not going to be exactly 2025, but at some point in the future, this kid could take that job and run with it. And that's why I like him as a sleeper. Although, as I mentioned at the top, he's getting drafted a little bit higher, a little too rich for my blood at this point. But he's got sleeper potential, obviously.
Yeah, I think the only thing is you worry about Tyrone Tracy, who was very productive last year as a rookie, but this is somebody that is a between the tackle, physical running back. And I think Brian Dable felt like, Tracy's a really good player, but we need somebody that gives us a little bit more oomph in the run game. And I think that's where Skattebo comes in. He's extremely versatile. He can catch the ball. He can be a pass blocker. And maybe I think one of the things I want to see during training camp in the preseason is it Tracy being used on passing downs or is it Skattebo? Because if it's Skattebo, I think he could have a role pretty quickly into this offense.
Yeah. The downside with Cam is that he's 23 and that he's already had more than 700 carries over the last 4 years of his collegiate career. So that's the downside, but the upside is big. And the fact that, listen, the Giants are going to want to run the football. Okay, now I don't know if they're going thunder and lightning. I mean, they could, right? I mean, like they've had that combination. You remember obviously Brandon Jacobs back in the day. They had Ahmad Bradshaw. Guys who have different type of skill sets, and that might be what we see with the G-men with Skattebo and I love saying Skattebo and Tyrone Tracy. That might be the sort of scenario that we see, like a thunder and lightning light or 2.0 or whatever the heck you want to call it. And that could potentially bring you some standalone flex value in his rookie year and long term. If he comes in the league and just goes bananas and really shows that what he did at Arizona State last year was not a fluke, maybe he ends up being a very productive fantasy running back for you into the future.
My guy is Ben Sinnott of the Washington Commanders. Zach Ertz is going to be 35 during the 2025 season, and it already felt like a couple of years ago the end was near. I'm actually surprised that he was as productive as he was last year. But Ben Sinnott played last year a lot as a blocking tight end. But I want you guys to remember, this was somebody who was very good as a receiver coming out of Kansas State. He had an 89th percentile separation grade, 76th percentile yards per route run. He was great after the catch. Was great in contested catch situations. He's also a fantastic athlete. He got 6'4", 250, and ran in the 4.6s with a 40-inch vertical. 40. This is a supreme athlete at the tight end position in an offense that we think is going to be very good long term. So if you can just kind of think past the 2025 season, I just don't see how Zach Ertz is going to be on this team in 2026. We've seen Zach Ertz block some pretty good tight ends before. Do you remember that one year where he got 10 targets in week 1 and we were wondering why they weren't throwing the ball to Trey McBride, who everybody was really excited about? I wouldn't be surprised if that happens this year, where at some point the Commanders realize they've got to get faster on offense, because I think they could be kind of slow if they're rolling out Zach Ertz, Austin Eckler, Deebo Samuel at this stage of his career. Adding someone like Ben Sinnott and giving him more targets in the passing game, I think could help that out. He's tight end 31, which means he's basically free. He's just the type of guy in that offense with his athleticism I want to stash in the bottom of my roster.
I mean, he was a guy that I was on my radar last year. Yep. And I agree with you. Zach Ertz is kind of like the tight end blocker, right? I mean, not blocking in terms of being on the field blocking, but blocking a guy from reaching his ceiling and his potential. And I think that's going to happen again this season. But Sinnott's somebody who I really liked for all the reasons that Marcus mentioned. And if you can get him and stash him, I think that's a pretty good move. We've got a lot of good young tight ends to choose from, right? Especially some of the guys that came out in this 2025 class, that we've talked about. Hopefully there's going to be some of these players that hit for us. They're certainly not going to all hit, But I think once Sinnott gets his opportunity, and again, it might be 2026, I think he's got a shot to hit for the Commanders.
Got it. And again, this is somebody who has high draft capital. He was a early second round pick. So it's not like some day 3 guy that was fighting to make the roster. He's going to get chances. Stash him now before it's too late. All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty Football your first listen every single day. Go check out the channel on YouTube. Download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. Follow Fabs on Twitter at Michael_Fabiano. I'm at Marcus_Mosher, and we will see you right back here on Wednesday.